as you know, we talked about fetal development and how to explain that to other people and all. So the sort of natural progression is, tonight we're talking about the actual abortion decision. And I know a lot of you know, crisis pregnancy centers. There's some really good ones around here. And we're very fortunate. These three counselors are from Problem Pregnancy. And I wanted to make a distinction before I introduce them. I'm not sure if it was you, but someone I know pickets in Pittsburgh at the Planned Parenthood facility there and all that. But you can kind of divide up. There's picketing, then there's praying outside an abortion clinic, then there's counseling outside an abortion clinic, and we're not actually going to be talking about any of those tonight. We feel as though those are the kinds of things that you would, at your age, you would do with your family or what have you. But the kind of counseling we're talking about is when a woman comes in. And of course, Problem Pregnancy and Planned Parenthood are like this. And if you misstepped, you'd be in Problem Pregnancy, which is why it's called PP. Problem Pregnancy has followed Planned Parenthood around for at least 25 years.
Since 81, we've been in.
So that's almost 30 years. Planned Parenthood was in an office building in downtown Worcester, and it said PP on the door. So Problem Pregnancy started a couple doors down, closer to the elevator, PP on the door. And there was a lot, Planned Parenthood didn't think that was fair for them to have PP and all that. But the idea was to have that alternative right there. And if somebody walked in by mistake, that was okay too. So every time Planned Parenthood moved, Problem Pregnancy moved. And the last place before this, I just love this story. The buffer zone is a yellow circle painted around the clinic, and the counselors cannot go into it. The last location, the 35 feet, went right into the yard of Problem Pregnancy. And the police would come and say, you can't do that. And they say, but this is our own property. I mean, that's how crazy the law is. So anyway, Planned Parenthood moved into, did they build the building? Mm-hmm. This, palace back in the center of Worcester. So, Problem Pregnancy bought the building right across the street. And, when you're sitting in Problem Pregnancy, Planned Parenthood is your view. But the idea is that if you're not right there, there are going to be some people who would have come if you were right there, and if you're not, they don't. So you come in, and this place is like a very pleasant medical facility. It's very professional, but very pleasant. And the basement has, from here to there, full of baby toys and baby equipment. And Rod Murphy, who is the sort of grandfather of this whole thing, has written a book about centers and everything, and he talks about the fact that if a woman needs car payments, whatever the woman needs to carry that baby to term, he will make sure to get. And it ends up the Spirit provides. So they do a wonderful job. And, we hope that you'll never have a friend in a problem situation or what have you. But it's really good to know what kinds of problems people have, how they can be dealt with. And you might, when you're older, like especially in college, you might want to help on counseling or something like that. So we feel it rounds out the picture. And we have, to my right to left, we have Elaine David and Chris Santom and Corinne Dom. And they are counselors. They're not professional speakers, but they're well-trained counselors. So I think we're going to learn a lot. We really appreciate your comments.
Well, she just stole my thunder. I was going to say all that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What did you say? Basically, I've been doing this for about 8 years. I'm a grandmother, whatever, so I think I'm kind of like looking for young people to take over because I'm getting kind of old to be doing this kind of work. How I happened to get into Problem Pregnancy was an amazing story because God is funny. He plays jokes. I kept seeing this little brochure in these different churches that I traveled to, and the brochures would say, we're looking for donations and help at Problem Pregnancy. So I would pick up the brochure and I'd go, okay, yeah, I'll put it in my pocket, and I stuffed it away. So then I went to another church, and there was that envelope again saying, can you come donate and work at Problem Pregnancy? So I put it away. Finally, the third time came, and I said, you know what? I think God is trying to tell me something. So I picked it up and I read it, and I called up, and 8 years later, here I am in problem pregnancy. To that day, I've never seen that envelope in any of the churches. So it's just amazing how God works. I feel that we do God's work as we do our job here. None of us are all volunteers. There must be, maybe 10 of us. We're always looking for new people to train. We have 24/7 on call, which means when the office is closed, anybody who calls up can speak to a counselor who's on the phone, and she will book an appointment for them to come in and talk to us. Okay? So what we basically do is provide services. We help save the baby's life at whatever cost it takes, and that means like financially, because if a woman needs to, let's say, buy a washing machine, she will say, because women who come in are desperate, that they feel like that they are trapped, like animals trapped in a trap, and they have nowhere to go. They have no one to listen to them. They're getting pressured by the world to have an abortion, whether it's a family member, a dad or a mom, a grandmother, a boyfriend, a friend. They know people who've had abortions. And because society says it's okay, because the law says it's okay, that abortion is legal, a lot of women think that that's okay to do. But we try to give women alternatives to abortion. In one particular case, this girl came in and she had to have an abortion, and we asked her why. When we do counseling, we try to get to the root as to why they want an abortion. Get to the root as to what's going on in their life. One particular girl was living with her mom, and her mom said, I just can't do any more washing. I just can't take on any more children, whatever. We bought a washing machine for that mom so that that baby could live. That's an awesome, awesome thing. It can be simple little things that we do to help moms have their babies. There are three, when a girl comes in, there are three, what I basically do is I educate the women and offer them their choices. You have three choices when you're coming to counseling. One, you can have an abortion. Two, you can have your baby. Or three, you can give your baby up for adoption. We do not do abortions at problem pregnancy, and to be upfront with you, I do not refer anyone to Planned Parenthood because we don't do that because they do abortions there. We're all for saving the baby's life and helping the mom. Okay? So when they come in, they have those three options. So I educate the women as to what their choices are. Now, we're going to be short and brief about this, and we're going to open this up for discussions because I'm sure you're going to have lots of questions, we hope. And basically, we can give you like little scenarios. Okay, so an example would be a girl comes in and she says, I want to have an abortion. The first thing we do is we do a professional pregnancy test, because a lot of girls get their pregnancy tests done at the dollar store. You can go and get a pregnancy test there? Okay. But sometimes they don't work. We always do a professional pregnancy test there because then we know if the girl is pregnant or not. Okay, so that's the first step we do. Okay, we talk to the girl, we find out what she wants to do. We ask if she's been using birth control, whatever, that kind of stuff. Okay, so then we get an idea of what's going on in her life, and we know from that point what her decision is going to be. When she finds out the truth, whether she's pregnant or not, that's how we can work with her. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay? Yeah? Okay? If it doesn't make sense when I'm rattling on, just raise your hand and I'll clarify. Okay? So, what I do is I basically will talk to the girl and find out where she's at. Now, if a girl says to me she wants to have a baby, I'm like, in my heart going, praise the Lord, because since I've been doing this for 8 years, when I first started, God played another trick on me, because for the first year, He gave me everyone who wanted to have their babies. And I said, this is so easy. This is like a breeze, Then the tables turn. Now, if I get someone who says she wants to have a baby, I'm going like, really? I can't believe that. Oh, okay, awesome. So our job is to find out why they want an abortion, how we can help them, whatever, okay? And our goal is to get them in for an ultrasound. Because chances are, when a woman sees an ultrasound, she'll have her baby. What we want to do for an ultrasound is basically see if it's a viable pregnancy, because if it's not viable, she'll miscarry. And I think in all honesty, it's easier to live with the miscarriage than it is with an abortion, okay? So that's what our goal is as counselors, is to get them into the ultrasound tech, and she can do the ultrasound. Okay, so I offer them the 3 choices. I talk about abortion, I talk about the 2 basic kinds of abortion, the IU-486, and I have literature on that. The morning after pill is another story in itself. I know you can get that over the drugstore now, over the counter. And then I talk about the suction abortion. Note that I want to educate the girls so they can make good decisions. I talk about that with them. Second I do is talk about adoption. Now, I went to training in Massachusetts, and there was a program, and basically it talked about, in Massachusetts, this open-ended adoption, so that the moms get to pick who they want the parents to be of their child. Now, under that, there's 3 different links you can do. A mom can pick to say, basically, I don't want any contact with my child forever. Okay, that's fine. Second, or she can say, I don't want any contact with my child till my child is 18. Or she can have contact with the child from day 1 all the way up, which I think is a bummer for all the adopted parents, but I don't care. That's the way it is. So I think that's a wonderful program, and I think you can focus on that a little when I finish with my modeling. And then the third thing is having a baby. Now, our goal is to have the women have the baby. Okay, so we kind of like get a sense of that's what we provide the needs and offer services, whatever, so that they can have the baby. One of the big issues is financial, that they can't afford to have a baby, and I always say to the women, man, you know, some of us married couples who got pregnant couldn't afford to have our babies either, but we did. So one of the other things is housing. A lot of women are afraid they're going to get kicked out of their home because they're pregnant. Okay, we refer a lot of people to Visitation House in Worcester, which helps moms and their children. We refer to a lot of agencies in the community that can help, including rent, that kind of things, whatever. Yeah. And food, anything.
Clothing.
Yeah. And so what we do is encourage them to do this route. Okay, so that's basically what it's about. When you work at problem pregnancy, you never know who's going to be coming in the door, so it's always like fly by the seat of your pants. It's like you've been trained or whatever, but you never know. When they come in and they start telling you everything, it's like, whoa, you know? So there's a lot of silent prayer as we're counseling these girls in our hearts. We involve God in our hearts that we can help these girls. So that's pretty much the basic gist of what we do. Another thing we do is we talk about STD and abstinence. And when I bring up chastity and abstinence, it's like it's Greek to these girls, because it's like, oh, what is that? But we try to encourage girls that, you know, if you had, you know, sex or whatever, you can always, from that day forward, not have sex again. It kind of like, I think it devalues women, but that's, you can continue with that if you want, okay? So, I think I kind of like said, fill in at any point.
Yeah, can I just jump in?
Yes, you can. You can jump in. I'm done.
I just want to say how I started at problem pregnancy. I was one of those people who received those pamphlets, and I sent them donations all the time. And I kept on telling a lot, when I retire, that's what I want to do. I want to work for you to save babies. And then both parents got sick, and they ended up in separate nursing homes after I retired. And I was reading a book, and I said, Lord, you really have to show me what you want me to do. And I opened up, and there was a woman who said, I have a story about going to work to save babies after I retired. So I figured he was really telling me I got to get up and go do it. And that's what I did. And I've been there for about 6.5 years. But I just want to say one thing that I just found out. I had a girl come in 2 weeks ago, and she wanted an abortion. She was 18 years old. She had a scholarship to Assumption College. and she said that and she really had no place to live. She was legally a street person, but she was living with her grandmother or something, but it still didn't make any difference. She was with her social worker, but she wanted an abortion and everything, and we talked and everything, and she decided to come in for an ultrasound. And in the meantime, I knew someone that worked at Assumption, so I got in touch with that person, and I asked, can a person be pregnant and still come to college? And she found out with a big yes, definitely. And really, God is funny, because her husband is the person who takes care of the unwed mother that's going to college, is underneath the woman that I was talking to, her husband. I mean, what are the odds? You know, God just planned everything. So now she came in for her ultrasound, and she is having the baby against everyone. Her mother, relatives don't want her to have it. And she just stood up and she said, this is my body, my choice. I want to have my baby. If you want to be in my life. But she is having the child, and she's going to go to college with the scholarship that she got. So that was wonderful.
And there's another program that we can hook up with that it helps any woman who's pregnant, wants to continue with college, and they will even help them go to another college out of state and help with tuition or whatever. So there's lots of networking out there that we can help with. We refer people to in the community, whatever. So if a woman decides to have her baby, she doesn't have to do this alone. That, we're there for them. There's tons of services out there, and we just basically network.
And it's amazing because they keep coming back with friends.
I know. If you bring their friends.
I had them yesterday. This is a friend of mine. I'm bringing this one. I'm bringing that one. And it is sad when a person comes in. I had someone yesterday that was adamant about having an abortion, but she's coming in tomorrow for an ultrasound. So she's in our prayers, and we hope that she changes her mind. She says, I know everything. I know what it's all about. And I say to myself, but you don't know God. So, what he's going to do, because it's his plan.
How I kind of ended up at Problem Pregnancy is I've been doing a lot of pro-life work for many years. And one of the things I was very active in when I was living in Connecticut was the 40 Days for Life, which is basically a prayer vigil outside of Planned Parenthood. In Connecticut, we did it for 24 hours a day for 40 days. In Worcester, we've been doing it for just 12 hours a day. So one day I was all by myself praying out there, and a deacon happened to walk by, and he started talking with me and praying with me, and Rod came out. He saw the deacon, ran out to talk to the deacon, and I really had to go to the bathroom. As if Rod wanted to show the deacon the Problem Pregnancy in the beautiful chapel, and I just tagged along, and Chris was at the desk, and somehow a couple of months later, I'm in Problem Pregnancy. And like Chris says, God does ease you into this, because when you first get in, you watch all the tapes, you're very nervous, you don't know how things are going to go, but I've been there, since December, and I was like a lucky charm, because almost every girl that came in was not pregnant. So those are obviously easy ones. What really surprised me in talking with these girls is that when you talk to them about chastity, it's like no one's ever loved them enough to tell them that they're worthy of, being treated better and treating themselves better and not lowering themselves. And they're so, I thought I would get more like angst from the girls, but they just look at you like, wow, and they're so grateful for you for taking the time to just talk with them. And of course, if the girls were pregnant, I always got the girls that were happy to be pregnant. You can help them out. A month before they're due, you tell them to come back in, and is it Rita? Yeah, Rita will put together a big spread for them. Blankets, diapers, bottles, anything you need to start your life out with your new baby. And people are very generous in donating all these things to Problem Pregnancy, so that we then can give them to the girls that need them. So this past Monday, was the busiest day I've been has been there, and God really wowed me, because the first girl comes in and she's pregnant and she's just scared. I talked to her for an hour and a half because she didn't know how she was going to tell her mom. You know, I mean, you just look at these girls and it's amazing the capacity of love that you have, because you start talking to these girls and you just have so much love for them. You just want to wrap your arms around them and protect them. And she just really needed someone to talk to and talk how she's going to tell her mom about being pregnant, because she was so afraid that her mom was going to have a negative opinion of her because she didn't know she was having sex. You know, it's like, I wish you could get to these girls beforehand and just say, you know, if you do this, this is going to, you know, it's like there's a logic train, and they obviously haven't taken that. But then I did get my very first, the same day, I got my very first abortion-minded girl. And this one is a very, very hard case, very difficult case. I mean, I can understand where she's coming from. And like Chris says, you kind of have to peel away. You know, what are the obstacles for you to have this baby? And the majority of the time, it's very selfish reasons, you know, because they're young girls, you know, they're very self-centered, and that's kind of where we are in society. And for me, the biggest thing that I like to do is, okay, so, you know, you're going to college, you have your plans for yourself, you want to do this, 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 and this, and obviously, you know, this pregnancy has changed that a little bit, put a blip in the road, and you think abortion is the answer. What about adoption? Adoption can allow you to go on and do exactly what you wanted in life, and yet here you are, you'll be able to give life to a new person, and then give that person a family, you know, complete a family of a couple who's desperately wanting to adopt. And I personally have a great perspective on that, because I was adopted, and so I push adoption more than anybody. Not that anybody's listening, but I'm really trying to change the perception of adoption, because I think a lot of girls, you know, immediately they say, "Oh, I couldn't do that." Now they, in their minds, they think that they can kill their baby, but they can't. They don't feel that they can put their baby up for adoption. But I mean, you could do no more heroic thing in life. I mean, there's nothing better. There's no medal, there's no trophy, there's no honor, there's no job in the world that would make you more of a hero than completing a family by giving your baby to a family that would love to raise them. So I'm ensconced now in problem pregnancy, and I would just ask you to keep baby Michael in your prayers, because I spiritually adopted this little boy, and I did convince her to come back for an ultrasound, and I just pray that I gave her some information. I gave her this, and I gave her the information on RU486, and hopefully she'll read it over, because these are not good things to happen. I know your speaker, Cori, will be talking to you a little bit about, you know, the aftermath of abortion, but the girls don't know going in, you know, the risks. They could die, they could hemorrhage, they could get an infection, a septic infection, they could be sterile. It's actually a violent procedure, and it's really degrading to women. Many women say that it was, even women who have been raped say that the abortion was worse than a rape if they do indeed have an abortion after that. And RU486 is a chemical abortion. It entails taking 2 different pills. The first pill the girl takes, and it basically starves the baby to death. So then she has a dead baby. A couple days later, she has to take another pill, which is a prostaglandin, which causes contraction of the uterus, causing her to expel the dead baby. And she's going to do this at home, the grocery store, wherever, you know, these contractions happen. She's going to expel her dead baby. And many women who've had both types of abortion said this is way more painful And I can attest to that too, because I had a miscarriage at about 7 to 8 weeks, right around the time you do a RE46, and I can tell you that was more painful than having 2 babies without drugs. Way more painful. So I really feel for women who have been convinced to go that route.
I had a miscarriage in 3 months.
Wow. Does anyone have any questions?
I actually had, is it okay for me?
Sure.
Okay. Actually, 2 questions, and I'm Helen Cross. I'm editor of the MCFL News, so I'm here promoting the good paper that we put out, and knowing that your good words are going to go to the pro-life people that belong to Mass Citizens for Life and on our website and all over the place. So thank you for being here. And I actually have 2 questions. So I forget what I asked. The 2 things are this. I wanted to know about the scholarship, and I wanted to ask about ultrasound. You mentioned that there's scholarships available.
Well, it's
or,
a special program
Okay.
that helps women, can move out of state, whatever, can help them continue with their college degree.
Do you have a name for that?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but
Okay,
if you
we
call
will.
Call Pregnancy, we can get it.
I know, it's right there too. I
It's
just
right
saw it
there.
today.
I mentioned scholarship because the girl had a scholarship.
Oh, okay. It's
To the
a
school prior
program.
to the
Okay.
pregnancy.
Okay, thank you. I will call you about that,
Okay.
because I think that is something that,
It's like a manual or something. It's
Okay.
something.
well, we've had Feminists for Life, and that's one of the things that they talk about very much is empowering college-age women to have their babies. It's very rare to see a pregnant woman on a college campus.
Yeah.
The other question I had is about ultrasounds. We read all the time that ultrasound is an amazing way to help change the mind of abortion-minded women. Could you talk about that with personal experience? How an abortion-minded woman, once she sees an ultrasound.
Well, what happens? This is a baby at 6 weeks in the womb. I can pass this around, okay? This is a lifesaver too, because women don't actually know what's going on in their body. What we do is we do an ultrasound probably about 8 weeks, okay? That's when the ultrasound tech can get a good picture of the baby. Now, she can look to see if it's a normal pregnancy or not, because, I'm not a tech, so I don't do that piece. But if it's not normal, that means she's going to miscarry, okay?
Like if the heart's not beating.
Yeah. She can do a heartbeat earlier, because what happens is when a woman who is undecided or abortion-minded, you'd be surprised. It's changed now, but in the past, once a woman sees her baby on the ultrasound, then her heart melts, and she realizes that it's a baby, and she becomes very protective. Now, sometimes, in a couple of cases, women who want an abortion will see the baby, and all of a sudden, if Kathy can't see anything, can't hear the heartbeat or something, then all of a sudden they start freaking out because there's something wrong with the baby. So it's a matter of like where they're at and whatever. Unfortunately, I don't know the percentage, but nowadays the women who go and see the ultrasound still will march out and have an abortion.
Okay.
So it's harder and harder, even with the ultrasound, to get women. I think it's a sign of the times, society, the hardening of hearts or whatever, that they're determined to have an abortion. But this is one of the tools that we use. We're hoping that we get them in there to see the ultrasound, that they'll change their mind.
Right. It doesn't work all the time, but it does work enough. Even if it works once,
Yeah.
It used to work every time.
I know.
Just about every time.
What's the quality of the ultrasound? Like, can you see it really well, or is it?
Yeah, we just got a brand new machine. As a matter of fact, the Knights of Columbus bought us a brand new ultrasound machine. And so last year, you can really see a good ultrasound. And the thing is that we can't do it before 8 weeks because you really can't see. You can see the sac, but you can't see the baby inside. As the baby gets bigger, because we call it like the vegetable babies, because 1 week they look like a lima bean, from a pea to a lima bean to whatever. And as the baby gets bigger from week to week, then you get to see the baby
Yeah.
larger in the sac.
And that's just due to the resolution of the ultrasound itself. I
Yeah.
mean, the baby's a baby, even no matter how small.
Yeah.
But it's the resolution. of
If
the
they're
ultrasound.
further along, do you remember we had an ultrasound, I don't know if it was last year when we first got that, and the baby just was like a little actress, like here I am. You know, the camera was on him, and was just, doing this, sucking the thumb, the mother just melted. I mean, but the baby put on a show. It was like,
It's where they know
it
it's on
knew,
camera.
yeah, it was like, and we're all like, look at this.
And one of the interesting stories I experienced one time is that this woman wanted an abortion. Okay. So I talked or whatever, she said, I can't have this baby, blah, blah, blah. So they brought her in for the ultrasound, and then they brought her back out and brought her into me and said, you need to tell her that she's having twins. And I'm going, oh my goodness, what do I do? So I'm talking to her and I'm going, the twins run in your family? And she goes, yeah. I said, well, what if you were having twins? Would that make a difference? As she already was dead set against having an abortion, right? Having an abortion. And she said, well, I don't know. She says, it runs in the family, whatever. And I could see the little hole there. So we brought her back into the ultrasound. They told her that she was having twins. She freaked out, hysterically screamed, happy with joy, and had her babies. It's amazing that one baby sometimes doesn't live, but if a woman's having twins, because it makes them special, I think, that all of a sudden that they were going to have their twins. It's just interesting.
I was just thinking of one. Do you remember the time that a woman came in and she had 2 sons or 3 sons, and she said, I'm pregnant and I don't want another son. She says, if I'm having a son, she says, I'm having an abortion. So she had the ultrasound. Of course, she couldn't tell she wasn't that far along. She then brought in, next time coming in to have an ultrasound, she brought her boys with her to see the baby. And all of a sudden, they all came out with pictures of the ultrasound. The kids were excited, and it was like she went from one extreme to another. I'm telling you, the ultrasound is unbelievable. It really is.
But it's also helpful too, because like Chris was saying, you do want the girls, you want all the abortion-minded girls to get an ultrasound, but the ones that even are adamant, they do need to know, because if it is not if the baby has already died, they could go to Planned Parenthood, and Planned Parenthood would just do an abortion on them, and they would never have told them that the baby was dead. And so the girls would then go on thinking that they had killed their baby. And the other thing too is you want to make sure it's not an ectopic pregnancy, because that's another very dangerous situation where the baby has lodged into the fallopian tube. In that case, you do need to go to a hospital, and the baby has to be taken to save to save the life of the mother.
But does Planned Parenthood make money off abortions?
They make money off abortions. They have about $1 trillion.
Yeah, don't they charge $700?
Yeah, they make a lot of money, and we give them over $350 million a year federal taxes, and they make close to $1 billion a year in profit.
So like the women who have financial problems, so they can't have a baby, still have the money to have abortions.
Some of them, Medicaid.
Yeah.
Medicaid pays for abortions in this state.
Yeah.
And sometimes women who want to have an abortion, or their boyfriend or whatever encouraging them to have an abortion, they'll come up with the cash on hand on their own and go over there with cash to have an abortion.
Yeah, they won't do anything without cash. I mean, they won't even give you a pregnancy test. So a lot of girls will come over to problem pregnancy, and they're shocked that all their services are free. But yeah, the Planned Parenthood, there's a big debate in Washington that, our federal tax dollars shouldn't be going to pay for abortions. But in Massachusetts and Connecticut and some other states, we're paying for abortions anyways with our tax dollars through the state funds.
So we have time for like 2 more questions.
How many women do you counsel every day?
Varies. Yesterday afternoon, there were 8 people which was a lot because I counseled from 1 to 4.
Wow.
Yeah, there was 8
Yeah,
that came
That's a
in.
lot.
We do the volunteers all do 3-hour shifts, at least a 3-hour shift per week. So some days you can be like having 8 people come in that 3-hour slot. We always work with 2 counselors there. And then other times you can be sitting there twiddling your thumbs because nobody comes in.
Right.
Okay, it all depends from.
But Wednesdays usually happen because that's baby boutique day,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's when they're giving out diapers and formula.
And that's open to the community on Wednesdays, so anybody can come in that needs formula, diapers, baby stuff, carriages, whatever we have, we give those out free.
And also maternity clothes.
Yeah. So we provide that service to the community as well.
A lot of the churches have baby showers.
Those are
Okay, and they're baby showers, and then they bring in the gifts, you know, they're all in gift bags, so on and so forth, and that's how we get a lot of our donations too.
Well, I want to thank you very, very much. I think it isn't just what they said, it's the lovely manner in which they said it. If you went in looking for some help, it would be really nice to talk to one of these ladies, wouldn't it? I had the same experience with the twins. A girl who was about 17, and then she found out it was twins, and you couldn't afford twins. And I say, but that.
Well, they can't afford one, but they can afford twins. which is
Exactly,
smart.
but
Blow them away,
as you
you know?
say, whatever works.
What works will work.
You know. So we appreciate it very much. The thing is that I think maybe at the end is when people will want to take things, but I don't want to keep you leaving the stuff. So if you'd like to stay, you're welcome to stay. Otherwise, they can come up now.
You want me to do this?
Yeah, give those out.
Okay, well, whatever you. Years ago, Cori was named the best certified public accountant in the state. And that's what I saw on your resume, something like that.
No,
and she,
condo association accountant, not in the
no,
state.
oh, well,
That's
anyway,
condo accountant.
but it's statewide. And she
come on,
keeps our books for us. And Massachusetts is a big business. I mean, we have a lot going on. Things like this, other conferences, lots of newspapers go out, which are very expensive and everything. So we really need somebody who knows how to keep our books, and Cori's been with us now for a little more than a year, and we are extremely grateful to have her. But I'm not going to say anything else. She's going to tell you the rest about herself. So this is Mrs. Moore.
Yes, but I introduced myself as Cori earlier, so I would appreciate it if you call me Cori, if that's okay.
Okay.
All right. This was originally written to speak to confirmation classes in the Archdiocese of Boston, where one of my parish is. And when I was asked to speak tonight, I realized that, you know, I wasn't a Catholic audience anymore, so I tried to change it. But what happened was I couldn't take a lot of the Catholic out of it because it's part of the story and it's part of my history. So it's there. If you're not Catholic, bear with me. And I have to read it because it's a little too emotional just to speak off the cuff. And I also want you to be able to have a copy of this if you wanted to read it later on, or if there were questions or your parents had questions about what I said. So without further ado, thank you for being here. It really means a lot to me. When I first read the list of speakers for this summer academy, my immediate reaction was that there had been a misprint. After my name, it says abortion survivor. And to me, an abortion survivor would be someone who lived despite her mother having attempted to abort her life. But I suppose it is true for my situation too. I sought an abortion and it nearly killed me. Not physically, although it certainly could have. And there have been many days in my life that I desperately wished that it had. The abortion of my child nearly killed my soul. The soul that makes me who I am. The soul that God gave me and that I trampled with my actions. Since I am still here trying to heal and giving my witness, it technically means I have survived an abortion. Abortion is a violent act. It kills, it wounds, it maims, and it destroys, always and without exception. Some days I feel that I am barely surviving. Thankfully, today is a good day because I'm privileged to talk to you and to have another opportunity to make amends. Before I tell you my story, I want you to keep in mind a few things. There have been more than 53 million abortions in this country since the passage of Roe v. Wade in 1973. There are countless stories just like mine. Sadly, what you will hear is not unique. It is all too commonplace, routine, and unremarkable in our society. It happens every day. There are a slew of really bad reasons to seek an abortion. Inconvenience has been said to be the very worst reason and also the most common, selfish and tragic. Mine is one of those stories. But it is not without hope and redemption, so that makes me one of the lucky ones, one of the blessed. I want to tell you how faith in God has consoled me in despair and raised me up in times of darkness. I live my life now knowing that there are no coincidences. If it is good and it is in my life, it is because God put it there as a gift. Accepting things that I can't change and that are beyond my control is also a gift. Trusting that there is a purpose for these events and circumstances in God's plan for my life. This is my story. Before I graduated from high school, I had already checked out of my faith. I didn't see the point. I didn't want what I had perceived to be the drudgery, the rules, and the restrictions that came with being raised as a Catholic. I truly believed that I was smarter, more wise, and much better informed than my parents and all of the priests and sisters at my church. So I followed my own set of rules. When I was 19, I married the boy whom I'd dated since we were both 16 years old. Within the first year, I got pregnant. We told our parents. And then we told them that we were going to terminate the pregnancy. I was in my junior year of college by then, and it was much more important to finish college and to become an accountant than it was to be a mom. I believed it was an either-or situation. I didn't want to be tied down to a child. I would have a child according to my own schedule, not anyone else's, and certainly not God's. On Friday morning, October 7th, 1983, I had an abortion. Immediately upon finding out about my pregnancy, I called the abortion clinic for an appointment. Just days later, I arrived at that clinic determined to eliminate the inconvenience that this child had caused me. I had no expectation that I would remember this day more or differently than any other. It turns out there is little I have forgotten about that day. It started off around 5 a.m. with tremors from a small earthquake that occurred in New York State. I wore my high-waisted pinstripe straight-leg Lee jeans that were fashionable in 1983, a navy blue V-neck sweatshirt, and burgundy tasseled loafers. I thought the clinic was on Boylston Street in Brookline, but it was downtown Boston, so we were late for my appointment. Being late and nervous, my heart was racing and beating irregularly because of a slightly faulty valve that I was born with. They wouldn't give me general anesthesia as we had discussed on the phone because of my heart. But they certainly weren't going to turn me or my money away because of a little heart defect. So I was awake and very alert, and that much more terrified. I was allowed to keep my glasses on. Every sight and every sound became etched in my memory and on my irregular and soon-to-be broken heart. During the procedure, I changed my mind. There was an instant when it became clear that what I was doing was very wrong and that I had made a horrible choice. I begged the doctor to stop. I found out recently that this sudden understanding and realization that I experienced was because we each have God's natural law written on our hearts, minds, and consciences. I was aware that there were 10 commandments that good people followed, but I knew what I had just done was wrong without reading anything. I knew it was wrong without being told by anyone. I had just killed my own child, and there was nothing I could do about it because it was too late. I regretted that I had believed the lies told by the staff at the abortion clinic. They said it's safe. It is not. They said it's painless. It is not. They said it's quick. It's not. It lasts an entire lifetime. They said you'll have other children, and I did not. The worst one, they said it was just a bunch of cells. That bunch of cells had a DNA sequence at the very moment of conception. DNA that was unique and precious and never to be repeated. Those cells would have been my child if I had been brave enough to receive the gift of God's love that had been given to me. Because I had no faith, I rejected a miracle. I became very depressed, and there were many times when I felt my life was worthless. I had panic attacks. I saw doctors and therapists for years, and I never felt worthy of having another child. What kind of mother could I possibly be if I didn't protect the life of the one that was given to me? I was able to put on a happy face and go to work most days, work that I resented because of all that I had given up to have a career. My sister Karen died at the age of 28, and my marriage suffered as my depression worsened. I got divorced. I dated so many men, I couldn't count them. I got married again and divorced again. In 1998, I met Steve, and we fell in love. We were married at a civil ceremony on New Year's Eve of 2002. I was still seeing therapists and battling panic and depression, but Steve accepted me as I was and loved me for who I am. I believe that it was this love that started to bring me back to God. By the end of 2008, I fired the doctors and stopped the medications and was planning to sink or swim on my own. I was sinking pretty fast as the reality of the bad choices I had made in my life continued to haunt me, especially my abortion and not having had other children. I was physically ill every day. Through pro-life messages from talk radio shows, newspapers, and the internet about abortion, my heart started to change. I had always believed that just because abortion hadn't been right for me, that it was still okay for other women. I was wrong. I had a conversation with a 17-year-old boy about his atheistic beliefs and realized that I did still believe in God. I had to believe in God to know that my sister was living her eternal life somehow and somewhere. I wanted to talk to a priest, just one time, just to get it off my chest so perhaps I could live the rest of my life with some peace. I don't know what I expected. I didn't remember too much about how to be Catholic. I couldn't even remember how to pray the Hail Mary. I looked up on the internet how to go to confession but got confused as none of it looked familiar since it had been at least 30 years for me. I emailed the priest at the parish where I live. His name is Father Powers. I wrote him about the abortion and not being married in the church and being on my third marriage. He wrote back within a day and told me he could help. He asked that I call him on Monday. I called and got an answering machine, and I was so relieved. As I started leaving my name, he picked up the phone and told me he had been praying for me. Can you imagine how it felt to know that a priest who didn't know me but already knew all of this horrible stuff could possibly pray for me? Having turned my back on the church and everything she stood for 30 years, I felt as if I were the worst sinner on the face of the earth. But still, he was praying for me and wanted to see me. That is what is so important in our lives, loving people who feel they are unlovable, reaching out with a helping hand, not to condemn, but to nurture, to love, and to save. We met on St. Patrick's Day for my reconciliation. Father gave me absolution for my abortion, but he couldn't give me absolution for the mess that I had made with my marriages. There was work to be done to resolve that problem. Until then, I couldn't receive Holy Communion. Well, that was fine, since I had no intention of actually going to Mass. I still didn't know what I believed, but I did recognize that I wanted what he had. Faith. Big, strong, beautiful, apparent, rock-hard faith. As I was leaving, he said, "See you Sunday?" To the puzzled look on my face, he added, "For Mass?" Because he invited me, because he reached out his hand and his heart to me, I became part of my parish, and my faith started to grow. He then said, "You made my day." From my perspective, I had just admitted to murder, adultery, and all sorts of other bad things. Yet I made his day. I've pondered this over these many months. I started looking at it from his perspective, from God's perspective. I was a lost sheep, and I had been found. There was hope for me. Father Powers was God's instrument to help me, to bring me back from the precipice, and to save me. As part of my penance, I was to contact Project Rachel, a ministry within the church that helps people wounded by abortion. A team of priests and caring women work to help people heal and to find inner peace that they need to come back to God. They use reconciliation, scriptural teachings of forgiveness and love, loving rituals and sharing, and stories from other women who have been healed to give hope. They taught us to recognize the precious life of the child we gave up, and to name him or her, to give an identity that we had taken from him. I named my child Patrick in honor of St. Patrick's Day when I received reconciliation. I found great comfort in learning that for all these years he has been with God. I pray he is with his Aunt Karen, who was the only one who had tried to defend his life. My religious education stopped after I made my confirmation, and what I learned as a child contained a great deal of misinformation and lacked most of the important doctrine that I should have known. When I came back, it was all or nothing. The Ten Commandments were no longer multiple choice. If I had a doubt or believed something was ridiculous, I looked up the church's logical, powerful, truthful teachings, and I asked lots of questions. I had messed up for so long by making my own rules that now I was hungry to follow obediently. Not perfectly, not without mistakes, and not without twinges of pain or doubt. I have not been disappointed as my knowledge and my faith has deepened. My logic was flawed for so long that it was a relief to believe the truth. Some people believe that women should have a choice, saying it's your life, do what you think is right. I'll support you in whatever you decide. That is what most people said to me when I asked for advice. God's natural law dictates that you are obligated to defend the life of an unborn child. You cannot provide emotional or financial support for an abortion or even offer a ride to an abortion clinic without violating that law. The responsibility of saving a precious life can and should be a daunting task. A priest or someone faithful to pro-life doctrine can help you to see the truth when you are faced with these issues in your own life. Many people have asked me, particularly my new friends from Project Rachel, how I am learning to forgive myself for all that I have done that was so wrong and that I have held close as punishment. I want to share this with you because it applies to each one of us every day. I reasoned that if I could forgive someone in my life that I had not been able to for the past 11 years, then perhaps I could learn to forgive myself. This person was a drunk driver who hit me with his truck as I was crossing a street in a crosswalk in broad daylight, and I didn't think he deserved my forgiveness. Once again, I was wrong. My only props are tissues and water and my rosary. I learned from a Project Rachel priest that forgiveness is an act of the will. What does that mean? We frequently hear phrases such as, where there's a will, there's a way, free will, willpower, strong will. Your will is the driving force inside of you that allows you to keep running when your team is depending on you. Your will is behind your ability to stay awake to finish a paper, or study for a test, or stand in front of a crowd and make a difficult speech. Your will allows you to not cry the next time you see that guy or girl who just broke your heart. Your will is involved in nearly everything you do. You find a way. You persevere. You don't quit. It's something you desire. It's your determination. That's your will. I took all of this knowledge about my will to learn to forgive. Every time I climbed a flight of stairs or got up from a kneeler in church, and my leg, which is now held together with metal, was aching, I repeated to myself through gritted teeth, I forgive you. That doesn't mean I like or approve of what he did to me. Forgiveness is not a feeling. It is a decision to be made. When you don't forgive, even small things, you are not only hurting yourself, you are hurting God. I'm reminded of Jesus' words on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. If he could forgive his torturers, who are we to not forgive those who trespass against us? We must. I use the same process to forgive myself. When my emotional pain and anguish start to torment me, I remind myself that I have already received God's forgiveness, and I must continue to forgive. Young people have asked me about Patrick's father and his role in the abortion of our child. Our situation was a little unusual in that I was the one who insisted on the abortion. But he supported my decision and did nothing to defend his child's life. I heard a saying that behind every abortion is a selfish man. Behind our abortion was a selfish man and a selfish woman. I spoke with him in March after his mother's funeral so he would know that I was giving talks like this one. He tried to tell me that the abortion wasn't my fault, that we all made the decision together. Of course it was my fault, and it was his fault too. In order to survive the reality of what we did, it seems we often revise the history to make it more palatable and more tolerable, to make it less horrible. I pray for his soul. There is a song by the Burncoat called The Freshman. It was written by the lead singer Brian about his girlfriend's abortion. In the lyrics, now I'm guilt-stricken sobbing with my head on the floor. Stop a baby's breath and a shoe full of rice. He demonstrates that his scars are as deep as his ex-girlfriend's. Even though he has taken full responsibility for the death of their child, he's never been in another healthy relationship with a woman since their breakup. 90% of all relationships in which a couple chooses abortion end in separation or divorce. My situation was typical in that regard. The tragedy of abortion leads to further tragedies of divorce, promiscuity, mental illness, infertility, breast cancer, addictions, and despair. So far, I've been spared the breast cancer and the addictions. I've been asked what might have changed my mind back in 1983. I'd like to believe if ultrasound were as prevalent as it is today, I would have recognized the humanity of the baby. If I had known about DNA having already been created as uniquely his, I might have thought about what traits of mine and of his father he would have had. Selfishly, if I had known what my grief would be like and that it will never go away, I might have thought twice. How did this happen and how did I go through with this? My Project Rachel priest helped me to make a little sense of these questions. I was born in the 1960s, at the beginning of the sexual revolution and women's liberation movement. I was bombarded by deception about rights and having it all. I listened to the arguments that were pervasive in society and easily became ingrained thinking. It was my right to have freedom and to do exactly what I wanted. And I never heard the other side. I don't know if anyone was speaking it to me, but I certainly didn't hear it. And I don't know if I would have believed it if I had heard it. I probably would have thought it was old-fashioned and antiquated. There have been many miracles in my life since the day I was reconciled with God, and I'd like to share a few of them with you. Recognizing the miracles helps to remind me of the graces and love that flow through my life, especially during the trying times. My husband had a stroke in October 2009. I immediately turned to prayer. I was so worried and frightened that I prayed the Hail Mary all night. His doctors assured me it was a slight stroke and he would be fine. When the test results came back, they were astounded that it had been a very big stroke. They used the word miracle, but the damage he sustained was not vastly worse. He continues to improve to this day, and the gratitude we feel from the blessings we received has not subsided. I recently learned of another miracle associated with Steve's illness. My mother had been diagnosed with breast cancer in July 2009, the same disease that took my sister. She had 2 surgeries to remove the cancer, the second of which was on October 7th, the anniversary of my abortion. She agreed to have radical chemotherapy and radiation to fight the very aggressive type of cancer she had. She agreed to this for only one reason. She knew I couldn't bear the loss of both my husband and my mother. Everything happens for a reason. These subsequent treatments and her second surgery on October 7, 2009 were successful, and I had reason to celebrate her precious life on that day. One year later, on October 7, 2010, I got up early to go to Mass to pray for my Patrick on the 27th anniversary of my abortion. His abortion. It was a beautiful Mass, and I savored every moment. When I arrived home, the phone was ringing. It was my mom. My dad had died in his sleep. We had no warning, and it was too soon. He was only 71, and today would have been his 72nd birthday, so I'm doing this for him today. I was devastated, and my first reaction was that my father was being punished for my sins, or that I was. I called Father Powers yet again for help, and he assured me that God doesn't work that way. He's counseled me that now I have a choice to make about how I remember that date. It can be the day that my father and my child entered into eternal life, a life we are all striving to attain. Or I can backslide and punish myself all over again for that which I have already been forgiven. God doesn't want us to suffer, he said. I'm working on remembering my father's beautiful life on earth, his peaceful passing, and the day that he may have met his grandchild, whom I hope to meet someday too. My faith has been pivotal in the healing and growing I have been blessed with in the past 2 years. It has been the key to freedom by seeking the truth just as God planned for each one of us. Our society bombards us with temptations, immorality, and outright lies. By living in accordance with God's will, you can know the truth in every situation because you will recognize it as what is good, decent, and right. That is true freedom. Recently, I found a paper written in my freshman year of college for my psychology class. It was a sociobiography of my life. The assignment was to analyze the external influences in our lives and the impact they made on our personalities and development. As I was preparing for this talk, I easily recognized the irony that paper exposed. I described to my 18-year-old self with deep insight. I really knew me. I stated that I hadn't wanted the competition that I experienced in advanced placement classes in high school. I went to a tiny 2-year college to escape the pressure. I didn't want a high-pressure career either. I wanted to be a secretary, so I could always find a job so I could get married and have children. I wanted to raise those children as my sisters and I had been raised by my parents. While writing this paper, I was accepted at a 4-year college. It was apparent that I had already disregarded what I had known so assuredly about myself. I want you to know that I would give up my beautiful home, my career, my CPA license, my life savings, and even my iPad. I would scrub floors every day of my life if I could go back and be a mother to my child for just 5 minutes. So he would know me, so I would know him. Motherhood was written on my heart as God's natural law. I let society influence my decisions because I believed the lies that I was wasting my life pursuing a job that may not have been intellectually challenging to me. My life should have reflected these natural laws, but I was too weak and stubborn and faithless to recognize any of this. If you believe the premise that I spoke of earlier, that nothing is a coincidence and that everything good comes from God, then here's another miracle for you. The professor of that psychology class 29 years ago, her name was Mrs. Helen Powers. She was the mother of my priest's father, Powers. Before he was my mentor and my teacher, she was. I found this out after her death, 2 months after my dad's death. It was a beautiful gift that my lessons from Father and from his mother before him, my healing, my teaching to you, have all come full circle. It is a brilliant, unending circle of life that we share, and it is guided by the gentle hand of God to help us and to make us our very best selves. I'll close with these thoughts. At the Easter Vigil 2009, I listened to Father as he baptized a baby. He told the parish that the whole world changed the day that she was born. The whole world changed the day that you were born. The day that I was born. And the day that my baby wasn't born. Each of you right now is making a difference in this world in ways you don't even realize yet. In your world and in my world, you make a difference. The question, will you accept this child from God, is asked of people every day, and it will likely be asked of you someday. Your life is precious. The lives you will create or you will save through your faith and your beliefs will be equally as precious.
Usually after Cori talks, a lot of people want to talk to her either individually or so. You want to go talk to her?
You can talk, you can ask questions, I just need to sit. I can't stand anymore.
When you went through all those years of counseling, did you ever mention the abortion?
I mentioned the abortion so many times, and the counselors would say to me that I was wrong. And I've since my dad died, I've had a hard time, and I'm actually seeing a Catholic grief counselor right now that my priest sent me to because he knew things were getting a little rocky for me. And she said, you were actually condemned because you knew that this was wrong, and they were telling you it was fine, and it was right, and it was okay. And it's not. And when your body tells you that, when your heart tells you, when your mind tells you, when everything tells you, and then society tells you, oh, get over it, and go have another child, or buy a vacation house, you're free, you don't have children. That's very perceptive of you to ask that.
That amazes me. There's so many studies out showing that women, suffer from post-abortive stress syndrome, and the psychologists and psychiatrists will not acknowledge that because it's so ingrained in our society.
It is.
And they have to admit that they were wrong.
Right.
And
a lot of them have had it. Have had an abortion.
Yeah.
The first counselor I ever had, when my sister was sick, that was when I started going, and she was pregnant when I started seeing her, and she's like, don't you know anyone who's had an abortion and then had gone on to have a child? And I go, no one talked about this. I mean, I didn't know anyone who had an abortion. Turns out I did, but I didn't know it at the time. And she said, well, I had one. Just, you'll have babies. And she really dismissed how I felt and what I knew.
That's even worse. And your parents, what was their reaction when you told them that you were going to have the abortion?
Believe it or not, they were supportive of the abortion because they wanted.
College.
Yeah, I was the first person in my family to ever go to college, and they wanted me to stay there. And my mother wanted me to have a career so I wouldn't have a life like she had, which was to raise 3 children, and she thought that was not a good life. And I know it was.
I think one of the important things from your story, and because I grew up at the same time, and we really weren't, formed in the faith as well as I think we're trying to form our children in the faith.
Mm-hmm.
And the really important thing is that kids go to reconciliation, because even though right now they might not have any big sins, we all make mistakes. We're all going to make huge mistakes in our life. And if you have that gift of going to reconciliation on a regular basis, it's second nature. Once you make a mistake, you don't have to live through years and years of pain.
That's actually a big part that I took out because I said if it's not a Catholic audience, that doesn't make a lot of sense to talk about. But I went to the Shrine of the Divine Mercy on Monday. Before every time I've given this talk, I go to reconciliation, and it's a great gift. It really is. To anyone who's Catholic, and you might think of it as drudgery, but it's really beautiful, and I get the greatest insights in there. So.
You said that you'd like people to be able to read your talk.
I brought some copies.
Oh, okay, because we could email it.
Okay. Or I did print some.
If you have copies, that's great.
Yeah. Helen, I may take that one back that I gave you and email it to you if someone else needs it.
Sorry, I'll look for it.
One thing that Corinne, you had said, or one of the other ladies said, about not being able to hurt the child. I forget what the context was, but it reminded me of something. I went to a wedding on September 25th of that year, and I wouldn't have a drink because I was pregnant. I knew I don't think I had my blood test back, but I wouldn't have a drink. And I thought that was so bizarre that I had an appointment or an intention already to have an abortion, but I couldn't harm the child myself. So I think that RU 486, mentally, it would be even worse.
It is, it really is.
Yeah.
And physically too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Cori, I don't know if you can answer this question, but it's something I think about a lot since we're talking in a faith context. And I think this is ridiculous, but I'm just going to throw it out there because you cannot be a pro-lifer and not be confronted by absolutely ridiculous questions. One of the things we've been accused of, people of faith, we want you women to feel bad. That's because faith is bad. Faith causes guilt. Now, can you speak to that? How do it's so absurd.
It's so absurd, but first of all, a well-formed conscience is not a bad thing. It makes you a good person to have a well-formed conscience. So a little guilt when you know you did something wrong, I don't think that's so horrible, but you don't suffer from it. You don't have to suffer all these years. And you don't, that's been the biggest surprise, I think, since I came back to my faith, that I have beaten myself up over and over, and it's been described to me that I now have pathways in my neurons that tell me I'm a rotten person because I did this thing. Had I not let it go this long, had I gone to reconciliation sooner, had I not fought God, who was calling me for years, it would have been a lot better off. So a little guilt to get you to do the right thing, I think, is great. Faith is not punishing at all. It can't be, because it's about love, and it's about forgiveness and mercy. So, no.
I think people too are not aware of, I can't remember the quote offhand, but there's a beautiful quote from Pope John Paul II. If I read it out loud, you would go, yeah, that's exactly what we want Catholics to teach and to do. Yeah, that's it. And it's Pope John Paul said it, and it speaks right to women that are hurting, and that there's not condemnation from the church. There's freedom from the burden of sin for all of us. And it's such a beautiful invitation that the church is so welcoming, and there's no other way to get rid of it. For all of us, no matter what we bring.
When I started working at Mass Citizens for Life, Janet, who works in the office, said that she's convinced that it will be post-abortive women who are going to change, to help this and change it around. And one blessing that I have is that I have the freedom to speak to you. I don't have other children that I have to worry about, and I have a husband who's supporting me in this. And a lot of women can't talk about it. Their children don't know, and sometimes their husbands don't know. So the secrecy of it makes people, and it's not exactly something you want to put on your resume that you had an abortion. So it's difficult, but the people who are speaking out, I think the more you see it, it's amazing. I didn't know there was a pro-life community. I really didn't. I thought that there were nuts that held picket signs, but that was what I thought pro-life was all about. And now I'm not holding praying in front of the abortion clinic. So.
It's true. There are 53 million abortions. Only about half that many women have had abortions, because almost half of the women have more than one and some have many. So say half of 53 million is 26.5 million. There's only 6 or so million people in Massachusetts. So there are women every place who've had abortions and haven't been healed enough to be able to share. Or as Cori said, people will talk about my appendix out, or my this or my that. They don't go around talking about my abortion. It's just, the Boston Globe a few weeks ago quoted someone as saying, abortion is different. This was not a pro-life. It's not the same as I had this problem, or I did that, or I cheated on my exam or something, because it's such a basic life and death thing. As Dr. Franks was saying, it's this basic life. And so, it's almost surrealistic, because the people we know, probably most of them haven't had abortions, and we hope they haven't, because we wouldn't wish it on anybody. But just think that, you're in the grocery store, or especially when you go away to school or what have you, that, and these women are all suffering. And it's not good for them, it's not good for society. And so we're very grateful to you for sharing, because I think it's good for you, but it's really good for us, because you don't make that connection. The baby, you can't kill a baby, babies are beautiful, but all these women who either didn't get the proper help, or ignored it, or whatever, and they're really hurting out there. We have on our board at Mass Citizens Father Hyatt, who is, I think, Eastern Orthodox priest. He's at St. Basil's Monastery, and I think he's head of the monastery now. So he watched the videos from the last 2 weeks, and he called me up last night at about 11:15, and he said, "You're not doing enough handouts." He said, "There is a poem about abortion that I think all of your students should have." So he emailed it to me right away, and I brought it. This poet who was maybe even when your parents were kids, not even in college. But she was like a very in poet. Everybody read her stuff and what have you. She committed suicide and nobody was ever, quite sure why. I never knew about this poem. Apparently she had an abortion and she never got, if she wasn't get back to God, I don't think she was ever a person who had any relationship with God at all. But this is the kind of poem that if you did it in school or for your mother or whatever, every time you look at it or you think about it, you see abortion coming at you and suffering from it in different ways. So Father Hyatt wants you to read it. He wants to hear what you have to say about it next week. So, but it's very different from Cori because, as I say, there's no reconciliation or anything in it. But it's the awfulness of the whole thing. And we actually have about 3 more minutes, and I don't know if anybody wants to talk to Cori individually or.
And I can give my copy too.
Sure. One more thing.
Because we were
Did I give
short.
out my email address? As I said before, I'm the editor of the newspaper. If anybody's interested in writing up something, like, or sending a letter to the editor, or just a comment, I would love to be able to print anything. So I'm going to give you my email. Write it down. And please, it could be one sentence, it can be an article, it can be a letter, it can just be why I'm here, something good, something bad, something you want people to know, okay? In print, your words, plus on the internet. It's HHCross, C-R-O-S-S, at Comcast, COMCAST.net. People want to know what you're thinking. I'll print it.
And they'll be impressed.
Thank you very much for considering it.
A couple of things that kind of she was brought up is the internet, and that you guys have a big privilege and power at your hands to spread this message and post pro-life things, not in your face things, but provocative things that make people think and start the discussion, with your friends, like on Facebook. Or start discussions with your friends, at school. You make sure that they know where you stand, always in love, and that if they ever are get themselves in trouble, they know who to go to, and you would be the resource to help them, and that they know that they would have somebody who loves them that would help them. And the other thing, to go to your question about the pro-life movement and love, love is helping each other get to heaven. That's the crux of it. Jesus died for us so that we could go to heaven. He's showing us what love is. He's willing to do anything to get each other to heaven. And if you're going to help somebody get to reconciliation or get the counseling that they need, not in the secular world, to reach healing, then a little guilt is the pathway towards that. So doing whatever it takes to get somebody to heaven is true love.
And there are Christian counselors. There's actually groups of Christian counselors that are making their presence known, because I think they're realizing there's issues like this that you're not getting help when you're being told you're wrong. So.
And the healing's in the pro-life movement.
Right.
But also in preventing problems.
True.
I mean, as you're putting out like the information you got from Linda last week, information from Cori, if every time you see an article or you go on a Methodism's website or some other website and you find something that will, do what you want to do at that point, a lot of times people really don't know. You come from the kind of families that you know. Mm-hmm. You know what the basics are, you need the tools. A lot of people have no idea. And it isn't even their fault that they don't know, because where would they find out? And as you say, with Facebook and everything, and I mean a cute video of a baby or something, that can just go viral.
Or anything on chastity.
Exactly.
That's a really good thing.
Because we don't want people at the door of the abortion clinic who need help. We don't want people who've had abortions who need help. We want to stop it all before anybody gets to those points. So you have I just have this big fat book I'm reading called Networked Nonprofits, And that's exactly what it's saying, that the power out there, and you people know what you're doing.
No, I wanted to add that anybody whose parents let them have a Facebook account, please don't forget to like the Mass Citizens for Life fan page, because that helps us get the message out. People who, our posts will come up on your wall, and your friends will see it, and so everybody who likes that page on Facebook is helping to spread the message as well. So.
Good, thank you. Well, it is 8 o'clock, so we worked out very